Welcome back to the Motorcyclist podcast. This is where we talk about motorcycles and we'll make some great. Topics on the show constantly change, but the one thing that remains is two-wheeled fun. I'm Justin Dawes, executive editor. We've got Adam Waheed, editor, and we've got Jeff Allen, photo director. Today, we are going to talk about parallel twins, the ubiquitous working class hero of motorcycle engines. They're affordable. They're simple. They've got all these reasons why they're popular right now, and we're going to talk about them and what we think about them. So, before we get started, we need to basically talk about what a parallel twin is. Let's start from the bases. I mean, pretty much everyone here knows what a parallel twin is, but in case you don't, parallel twin, just like it says, two cylinders side by side, aka parallel. The original parallel twins were a 360-degree crank. What that means is that both pistons went up and down at the same time. One would fire, this one would fire, and then this one would fire on opposite strokes. So that's originally how it was built. Lots of vibration, obviously, because you had two pieces of metal going up and down simultaneously. So it was like one gigantic piston reciprocating. So that's a 360. The issues with that obviously are vibration, less power. It takes a bigger engine to make the same amount of power, some other firing configurations, but that's the OG. It's not used much anymore.
I was just going to ask, can you give examples of a couple of bikes that use the 360?
Yeah. So let's talk like old bikes. Let's talk about Triumphs, Nortons, BSAs. All those bikes ran 360-degree crank setups. Nowadays, hardly anything uses it. Kawasaki's W800 actually still uses that configuration.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a very decidedly vintage retro machine. Like, Kawasaki went, we're going to build a retro machine, but it's actually going to be vintage in new metal. Which is cool. I mean, it's like and
it's going to look a lot like a Triumph.
It's going to look a lot like a Triumph. It's going to sound a lot like an old Triumph. So, anyways, that the sound from that used to be kind of like a thumpy, louder single in a way. It didn't have like a really distinct sound to it. So, anyways, the Kawasaki W800, super awesome, very vintage. And then there's QJ Motors is actually Chinese company. Their sport bikes and nakeds 400 cc's are also a 360 design, which is an interesting choice.
Yeah, it seems curious.
Yeah. It's not a performance configuration, so I don't know why they would do that, but who knows? So the next iteration that came along was the 180-degree parallel twin. So that one, the pistons move opposite of each other, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, but they fire in order. So up, fire, exhaust, fire. So you're going 540 degrees until the engine fires again. And that became popular with Japanese bikes in the 60s and the 70s. And the reason they did it was you made more power with less displacement. So like a 350 parallel twin was making the same power as a 650 British parallel twin in those times. And it was less power, less displacement. And that configuration is still used today in a lot of bikes. Probably easiest to see is Kawasaki's twins. Ninja 500 or
the Versus
or 650s, Kawasaki's 650 twins. Those are all 180-degree twins. And the sound from those is kind of this drone sound. It kind of has this flat engine tone. It's very monotone. It doesn't have a thump and a go away and a thump and a go away. It's like, brr, like a BMW. Sounds like a BMW because a BMW also is a 180 setup, a BMW Boxer engine. So that's what they sound like. It's kind of just a Bert. We'll call it Bert.
Yeah.
And then lastly is the 270 degree, or what we would call cross-plane crank parallel twin, which is becoming increasingly popular in this day and age. So it fires 270 degrees apart, or 3/4 of a revolution. So one piston is following the other piston, so it goes bang, bang, exhaust, bang, bang, exhaust. And what you get from that is you get an engine that sounds like a V-twin, kind of feels like a V-twin, but in a parallel twin. And Yamaha
smaller package.
In a smaller packaging. And Yamaha's CP2 is probably the most well-known of that engine configuration, but almost anyone that is putting out a parallel twin at this point is running a 270 besides Kawasaki at this point. So, I mean, even Triumph is using a 270 degree parallel twin firing order now. So
270 degree is what the Hondas are using, and the Africa Twin and the Transalp. Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah. So, I mean, there's almost every, like I said, almost every parallel twin is running that configuration, and it adds some character to what could be a very characterless engine, right? 180 engine just doesn't sound cool. A 360 is kind of lumpy and chunky, but also doesn't sound great. And a 270 gives you some emotion to the engine. So,
yeah.
A quick bit of history. We're not going to go really deep, but the first parallel twin engine was actually a steam engine in a, then we're talking about production motorcycle, 1894.
It's crazy.
Powered Hildebrandt and Wolfmueller, and it laid flat all on the bottom of the frame. The pistons went forward, and it was 360 degree firing order, and it was steam powered, and then it had big long connecting rods going to the rear wheel.
So I have a question about that. I'm not sure if you know. So are the cylinders pumping this way, or are they pumping this way?
They're pumping this way.
They're stacked side by side.
Side by side.
Mm-hmm.
They're laying side by side, not stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, okay.
And because then the connecting rods come off of those pistons out the seals of the cylinder and go straight to the rear wheel on a crank.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you had these two cranks like on the locomotive.
Yeah.
And then you had a boiler or a firebox sitting right between your legs, which is such an awesome idea.
That's some good old school ingenuity.
Yeah. Not only is it hot, but it could explode. It just like, and you're sitting on top of it. Not something I would want to attempt, I don't think.
Yeah, there have been other options too for positioning the motor and the frame, because you had longitudinally mounted inline twins.
Especially in the early days, you're talking like
exactly, like
20s,
the Sunbeam and stuff.
I mean, that was like the where everyone was trying anything and everything. You had inline fours going one way, another way. You had square fours. You had with two crankshafts. You had all kinds of crazy configurations. But now things have settled down quite a bit to more conventional engine configurations, singles, twins,
layouts.
That kind of stuff. So, then the Triumph Speed Twin in 1937 is given kind of the credit as like the bike that started the parallel twin popularity or usability or whatever you want to call it. But there was actually a Triumph that came out before that was called the Triumph 6/1, which was a 650 single overhead cam, 360 degree engine that made like 25 horsepower. That I don't know how to exactly say his name. Maybe Valentin Page, maybe Page. I don't know. So correct me in the comments. He's the designer of that bike. He worked with Edward Turner at Ariel, and then he went to Triumph, did the first parallel twin Triumph, and then Edward Turner, who's kind of the Exalted one for Parallel Twins. He went to Triumph afterwards, worked with Ariel and then or Valentine at Triumph, and then out came the Speed Twin, which was a 500cc. And from that just set off a line of Parallel Twins, especially in the British, like we're talking about Nortons, BSAs, all that kind of stuff. So that's and then from then it's just continued on. Parallel Twins have always been around. They've waxed and waned in popularity, but right now they are super popular. So
they are super popular,
and they're super popular not only with riders but also very popular with manufacturers. And
well, I think popular in this podcast as well.
Yeah. So, why do you think that they are so popular? Let's start with manufacturers first. Why do manufacturers like them?
Well, they're cheaper and easy. They're cheaper to build, fewer parts and everything. They're relatively easier to engineer. Frankly, it's easier to keep cool, than an inline four for sure.
Yeah.
So,
they're also
reliability,
packaging wise.
They're
easier to put into multiple different types of frames. They're versatile in the way that they make their power for the most part. They're very friendly engines, and you can, like you said, you can change those firing orders, and you can do some stuff to, make them over square, under square, however you want, to change the character quite a bit. But they can be used in a lot of stuff. Like we see them in adventure bikes, sport bikes, naked bikes, cruisers. Like they're in everything. So that's why manufacturers like them, is because they can make one engine like the Yamaha CP2, and they can put it in all types of bikes, and just change a few things and tailor the character of that engine to fit whatever kind of segment they're going for. But what about like the rider, Adam? Why would a rider like a Parallel Twin over maybe some other stuff?
Well, nowadays they've engineered that powertrain configuration to be, just like a V twin. So, it's compact but it feels like a V twin. So, you have a Parallel Twin engine, but unless you really looked at it, you would never even know that it is that. You'd think it's just a V twin.
You're talking about the characteristic of the motor?
Yeah, correct. So, that's why, I think that's why all the manufacturers obviously are making that engine configuration, because it's more affordable and it's easier to engineer in theory, but also because the riders like it, because it feels like a V twin. It has all the benefits of a V twin without any of the drawbacks. So, I like them. It's just at this point, though, everyone kind of makes them now. So it's honestly, it was funny because we were talking about the Kawasaki W800 and how it uses the conventional Parallel Twin firing order. Well, because everyone's using the 270 crank, now it makes that conventional firing order unconventional and more like desirable, to me at least. So
yeah, in a way, for sure. It's like you said, like they're super just friendly to riders, but we're getting into it. Like, do you like them or not? And Adam, you like them for what you said. What about you, Jeff? Do you?
Oh yeah, for sure. I love that the CP2 motor, both in the in their naked bikes, but in the of course the Tenere, which I've been riding lately. That's just a great motor. It's just such a nice package, and as an owner, for the same reasons the manufacturers like them, reliability and cheaper to maintain or cheaper to produce, it's also cheaper to maintain than some other motors.
yeah, Jeff confided in me yesterday that he would purchase a 2025 Tenere 700. So he really likes that powertrain configuration.
Yeah. Nice.
That whole package. It's not on that for that bike anyways. It's not just about the motor. That's a great package.
Yeah, it is a pretty good bike. I like them too. For the most part, I really like the way that they deliver power. They're very linear usually in the way that they make power. They're not peaky. They're not. You don't have to rev them to the moon, but you also can lug them. Like they seem to be happy at any RPM for the most part. which I really like. It makes a very flexible engine to do all types of things you want to do, which I think is great. And yeah, I the only thing I don't like about them sometimes is the engine looks dorky. Like it just is not a cool looking engine when it's sitting in a frame, right? Like it's
Yeah.
a V twin is so much sexier, or an inline four, or something else like a triple with 3 pipes. Like it's very utilitarian when you see a parallel twin sitting in a frame. It's just this rectangular lump with 2 exhaust pipes coming out of it, and you just go, me.
Maybe
Maybe
you need a motorcycle with a parallel twin motor that has a full fairing.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Mhm.
so you don't have to look at it. Yeah, and I think that's just a personal preference where you just look at it, and I think it makes, like, in a adventure bike it looks okay, in a full fare bike obviously because you don't see it, but like when you put it in like a cruiser, like an Eliminator or something,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
go,
yeah, yeah. Just wimpy. Yeah, I
it's
agree.
wimpy. That doesn't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's an excellent engine for that purpose. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of like, or like a Rebel 300 or 500, you look at it and you just go, yeah, that looks kind of dumb.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. I
But they
agree.
ride awesome. But
Hmm.
cruisers, a part of being a cruiser is the look as well. And I think they don't have the look for being a cruiser.
For me, that's okay. Like for me, function really influences my opinion of form. You know, I've looked at motorcycles before I've ridden them, and I'm like, wow, that looks so good. And then I ride it, and I get off, and I'm like, it's good enough. It looks great. You know,
Yeah, no, it looks great.
if it works
Yeah.
well, that really influences me.
Yeah. So what about your favorite parallel twin? Like which one do you prefer? Like, because there's all kinds of them now, and there's all brands, and they all do basically the same thing, but there are nuances. So let's start with Jeff.
Okay, thank you. Because we already know what I'm going to say, right? The
Yeah.
CB2. That bike is fantastic. I loved it when it was called an FZ07 at the time. But in the naked bike, uh, I love that bike, and actually styling wise, I prefer the XSR.
Mm-hmm.
But
XSR 700, yeah.
but then of course in the Tenere is for sure my chosen platform. I think that motor works really well both off road, the way the power is delivered, but it works great on twisty pavement. It's all around, that motor works terrific.
Yeah. Adam.
I really enjoy the parallel twin in the RS 660 and Tuono 660.
Oh, yeah.
Aprilia's version of the parallel twin. I like that one, and I have to give some kudos to Honda with its new 755cc parallel twin. I like that one too. That one's in stark contrast to the Yamaha iteration, where the Yamaha is all about low and immediate torque. Well, the Honda is all about high RPM HP, so 2 different flavors on the same engine configuration, more or less. So yeah,
Right on.
I'd say the Aprilia and the Honda are my 2 favorites. Not to discount the Yamaha, that one's awesome too, but the other one's a little bit newer and a little bit different.
Yeah, what's interesting about the Aprilia one is that it feels less twinny than some of
Hmm.
the others. Like
Hmm.
it almost has a triple-ish character in a way. Like it doesn't have the sound obviously, but it's very smooth and it's revy, right? It like makes
Yeah,
its
once you
power
get up in the
more.
revs, there's
Yeah.
not a lot there at the bottom.
Well, it's kind of like their V4. I mean, they always say, well, it's half of our RSV4 1100 engine. They always say that.
Yeah.
It really feels like that. Like it feels like a half of a V4. I don't know how they did that, how they made the sound character like they did, but it's a unique take on
Mhm.
that engine configuration, parallel twin configuration.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is a unique take a little bit, and I do like the character of that one, except you do have to spin it up a bit more than the other bikes. It has a little less
Hmm.
down low.
Yeah.
But that gives it a very sporty character because you're revving it all the time, and you're like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
I'm all on butt." And So
on the pavement, like it's that kind of engine characteristic is not, quite as favorable off road.
yeah, I mean, you just have to ride it a little bit differently
Mm-hmm.
in the Touareg. I still think the Touareg is an excellent, wonderful motorcycle. It has one of the better chassis for that class, um,
Hmm.
but the engine does pale in comparison to the CP2 and to my favorite engine, which is the engine in the new Suzuki's, their parallel twin. I think is probably, in my opinion, the very best parallel twin ever made, or I
Hmm.
should say mid-sized parallel twin ever made. It is so has so much torque and so much snap. It's just such a fun engine. The way that it makes power, it's got so much down low that it just makes any chassis it's in feel really lively off the bottom.
Yeah, but we should not forget about the KTM as well. If unless I'm forgetting something, I think that was the first parallel twin in an adventure bike. Yeah, and
Yeah,
and we all kind of fell in love
well,
with that.
no,
What was
there was Africa Twin,
the
old
Africa
Africa Twin,
twin? Is that?
the old
Oh,
CP1.
okay. Yeah.
It's a big parallel twin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
big parallel twin. So, uh, but yeah, the KTM engine is a very high performance engine. I think it's very kind of similar to the Aprilia engine. It likes to rev, but it's a bigger displacement, so it still has some down low oomph as well. So, uh, but I think for my taste, I really like the Suzuki, and then I really like the 1200 Triumphs. Like I really like that big Bonneville.
Yeah.
Uh,
Those things
you know,
sound amazing too.
you
They
know,
do.
like they're so much fun, especially in the Scrambler
Mm-hmm.
1200s. You know those things like
Yep.
Adam and I. Well, we all went down to
All three of us. Yeah.
Hmm.
We were just-
Hmm.
but like that trip, like still will rank very highly for a riding trip, and a lot of it comes to like we were riding these like retro looking
Hmm.
scramblers that had this amazing engine in it that was like a tractor. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. That was a
Those are
great
cool
route
bikes.
too.
Yeah.
The bikes were cool. The route was
Mhm.
cool. That was a fun trip.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So those are my two favorites. So I think we all like we cover almost all of them, and the three of us like what we like.
So,
And
no mystery why the manufacturers love them. I mean, we love them.
yeah, and I mean, what do we say to the naysayers of a parallel twin, right? Because we ride everything. We ride everything from like 200 plus horsepower V4s to 20 horsepower, 8 horsepower singles, and we all enjoy a parallel twin, although they may not be the flashiest. So, like,
Hmm.
what would you say if someone's like, nah, like that's dumb? Like, what do you say to them?
I just stopped talking to them.
I mean,
You
the
don't know
only
what you're talking about.
the only argument you can really have is what you said, Justin, like the aesthetics. Like for sure the aesthetics, like on the Eliminator, it doesn't really fit the profile of that bike. I know what you're saying. And like a good looking V twin is like a good looking engine. So that's really the only real critique I can ever think of is just like the look of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think my thing is don't knock it till you try it, and if you think that it's boring or you need more, I think your ego's getting in the way of your actual view of the engine, because we're all excellent riders. We all enjoy riding all the things fast, and we all enjoy a parallel twin every single time we get on it. So
Hmm.
if we can enjoy one, so can you, right? Because we
Mm.
have a reference that is much wider than most people, and like a V4 Panigale, totally sick. Like it's a mind bending experience that you will never forget. But I don't want to ride one every day,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's just
But it requires
too
a
much
lot
work.
of attention all the time. Yeah.
Exactly. Where a parallel twin, like you can you can commute on it and not even think about what gear you're in, how you're making power. It just goes along the road. And then you could like wring the thing's neck, and be thinking about how to make power and when to shift at the right second and all that kind of stuff. So it gives you this, it's really wide place to be, I think. And I think that's really what's fun about them. So we're going to start wrapping this thing up, but you guys have any other thoughts or takes on parallel twins?
They're cool.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
Adam. Go ahead.
I
Adam.
said they're cool and they're here to stay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they're definitely here to stay, whether you don't have a choice about it. The manufacturers do. They sell tons of them. It helps them increase their margin. So no matter what, you're getting parallel twins. They're here to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, customers do have a choice. I do have some say because they're buying them, and so that
Sure, they are buying them.
Yeah,
very much so.
And I really the Tenere, I just think for a stock motorcycle, that the sound of it is so nice too. You know.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Nothing sounds better though than my V-Strom with that Yosh on it.
Those things always sound good.
Yeah.
It sounds so good. So, all right, well, we're going to wrap this one up. Parallel twins, they are here to stay. They've moved motorcycles for a very long time, and they can be seen as kind of the core of motorcycle engines finding home in almost every type of bike. So for that, they may not be the most exciting at times, but they are probably the most important engines of all time, particularly right now. So with that, we're wrapping it up. Thanks for listening. Give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe, share with your friends, and put your comments down below and tell us if we're right or wrong about parallel twins. I'm sure we're going to have some haters and we're going to have some lovers, and we'd love to discuss it with you in the comments. So thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.